Now, here's where this conversation gets really personal. Could I be deficient right now? Is vitamin D the reason I feel this way? What happens if I ignore it? Because up until now, we've been talking about vitamin D in a scientific way. We've talked about hormones. We've talked about sunlight. We've talked about food sources. But the question most people really want answered is this. How do I know if I'm low? How do I know if vitamin D deficiency could be affecting me right now? And this is where things get tricky, because vitamin D deficiency rarely shows up with one dramatic symptom. Instead, it sneaks into your life slowly. It disguises itself as normal aging, normal stress, a busy lifestyle, a lack of sleep. And because the symptoms develop gradually, many people never connect the dots. Let's start with one of the biggest signs: constant fatigue. Not the kind of fatigue that comes after a long workout. Not the kind of tiredness that disappears after a good night's sleep. I'm talking about the kind of exhaustion where you wake up tired, you drag yourself through the day, you need coffee just to function, and no matter how much rest you get, you still feel drained. Researchers have repeatedly observed links between low vitamin D levels and persistent fatigue. Now, vitamin D isn't always the cause. There can be many reasons for fatigue. But if you've been feeling exhausted for months or years and can't figure out why, it's worth considering. Another major sign is frequent illness. Do you feel like you're always catching something? Every cold, every flu, every bug that goes around the office, every seasonal illness. It seems like everyone else gets over it quickly while you're sick for weeks. Your immune system depends on vitamin D. In fact, many immune cells contain vitamin D receptors. That's one reason researchers from institutions such as the National Institutes of Health and Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health continue studying vitamin D's role in immune function. Again, this doesn't mean vitamin D makes you invincible, but adequate levels appear to support normal immune responses. Now let's talk about something that affects millions of people. Mood. Have you ever noticed how many people feel worse during winter? The days get shorter. Sunlight becomes scarce. People spend more time indoors. Energy drops. Motivation disappears. Mood changes. This phenomenon has become so common that researchers even gave it a name: seasonal affective disorder, or SAD. Many researchers believe vitamin D may play a role because sunlight exposure and vitamin D production drop dramatically during winter months. Now, depression is complex. It's never caused by a single factor. But low vitamin D has been associated with mood disturbances in numerous studies. Another warning sign is muscle weakness. Many people assume muscle weakness is simply part of getting older, but muscles rely on vitamin D too. In fact, one of the first symptoms many older adults experience from low vitamin D isn't bone problems. It's loss of strength. They struggle to climb stairs, get out of chairs, carry groceries, or maintain balance. And speaking of balance, here's another surprising one: falls. Researchers have observed that adequate vitamin D may help support balance and muscle function, particularly in older adults. Two people can be the same age on paper. Both can be 60 years old. Yet one person looks vibrant, energetic, sharp, and active. The other struggles with fatigue, aches and pains, poor mobility, memory issues, and chronic health conditions. What creates that difference? Is it genetics? Sometimes. But researchers are increasingly discovering that lifestyle factors may play a much bigger role than most people realize. And vitamin D keeps showing up in that conversation. Think about this for a moment. Every single second of every single day, your body is rebuilding itself. Your cells are constantly repairing damage. Your immune system is constantly monitoring for threats. Your bones are constantly remodeling. Your muscles are constantly adapting. Your brain is constantly forming new connections. You are not the same person biologically that you were 10 years ago. Your body is in a constant state of renewal. The question is, are you giving it the tools it needs to do that job? This is where vitamin D enters the story, because researchers have discovered vitamin D receptors throughout the body, not just in the bones, not just in the muscles, not just in the immune system, virtually everywhere. That discovery changed everything. Scientists began asking a simple question: If vitamin D receptors exist in so many tissues, what exactly is vitamin D doing? And every year, new research reveals another piece of the puzzle. One area generating enormous interest is healthy aging. Researchers from institutions like Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, Mayo Clinic, and National Institutes of Health continue exploring how vitamin D status may influence quality of life as we age. Again, let's be clear. Vitamin D is not a fountain of youth. No supplement can stop aging. But there is a huge difference between aging and aging well. And that's what most people actually want. They don't want to live forever. They want to stay healthy, independent, energetic, and mentally sharp for as long as possible. They want to travel, play with their grandchildren, enjoy retirement, wake up feeling good, and continue doing the things they love. That's the real goal. Now let's talk about one of the biggest mistakes people make. Many people wait until they feel terrible before paying attention to their health. They ignore the warning signs, the fatigue, poor sleep, the lack of motivation, the weight gain, the constant colds, the brain fog. They assume it's normal. They assume it's just aging. They assume everyone feels that way. But what if it isn't normal? What if your body has been trying to get your attention for years? Think about your car for a moment. If the check engine light comes on, you don't wait until the engine explodes. You investigate. You figure out what's wrong. You address the issue before it becomes a crisis. Yet many people treat their bodies differently. The body gives warning signs, and those signs get ignored until one day they become impossible to ignore. This is why prevention is so powerful. And prevention is far easier than trying to reverse years of dysfunction later. Now here's another fascinating thing researchers have observed. People who spend more time outdoors often enjoy multiple health advantages. And here's the important point. It's probably not just because of vitamin D. Think about what happens when you're outside. You're moving more. You're exposed to natural light. You're often less stressed. You're breathing fresh air. You're disconnected from screens. You're reconnecting with nature. In other words, vitamin D may be part of a much bigger picture. And that bigger picture is a lifestyle. Because health isn't built by one nutrient. Health is built by daily habits. Small decisions repeated over and over again. That's why I always encourage people not to obsess over a single supplement. Yes, vitamin D matters. Absolutely. But so does sleep. So does exercise. So does hydration. So does managing stress. So does eating real food. The healthiest people usually aren't looking for shortcuts. They're building strong foundations. And strong foundations create strong health. Now let's address another question I hear all the time. Can you get too much vitamin D? The answer is yes. Although it's uncommon, excessive supplementation can lead to toxicity. That's one reason why blindly taking massive doses without monitoring levels isn't a great idea. More is not always better. Health is about balance, not extremes. The goal isn't to get the highest vitamin D level possible. The goal is to get into a healthy range and stay there. That's where testing can be incredibly valuable. Because instead of guessing, you know. And when you can make better decisions. Before we finish, I want you to imagine something. Imagine waking up tomorrow feeling more energetic, more focused, more motivated, more resilient, more capable. Imagine giving your body every opportunity to function the way it was designed to function. That's really what this conversation is about. Not chasing perfection, not chasing miracle cures, not chasing trends. Simply understanding what your body needs and giving it those things consistently. Because your body wants to be healthy. Your body is constantly working to protect you, to heal you, to adapt, to survive. The question is whether we're helping it or making its job harder. And one of the simplest places to start is by making sure you're not deficient in one of the most important hormones in the human body, vitamin D. Think about it. One simple nutrient influences your muscles, nervous system, bones, and coordination all at once. That's pretty remarkable. Now let's talk about bone pain. Most people associate vitamin D with bones, and for good reason. Vitamin D helps your body absorb calcium. Without adequate vitamin D, you can consume plenty of calcium and still struggle to use it effectively. Some people experience unexplained aches, back pain, joint discomfort, or generalized bone tenderness. And while many factors can contribute to those symptoms, vitamin D deficiency should never be overlooked. Now here's one that surprises people. Weight gain, specifically stubborn weight gain. Researchers continue investigating the relationship between vitamin D and metabolism. While vitamin D isn't a weight loss supplement, low levels are frequently observed in individuals struggling with obesity and metabolic dysfunction. Part of this may be because vitamin D becomes stored in fat tissue. Part of it may involve hormonal regulation. The science is still evolving, but the connection is difficult to ignore. And that brings us to another fascinating area of research: heart health. For decades, heart disease has remained one of the leading causes of death worldwide. Researchers from organizations including the American Heart Association and major universities continue investigating the role of vitamin D in cardiovascular health. Low vitamin D levels have repeatedly been associated with increased cardiovascular risk factors. Now let's be careful here. Association does not automatically mean causation, but when researchers keep seeing the same pattern over and over, it deserves attention. The same thing is happening with cognitive health. As scientists study aging populations, they're increasingly interested in how nutrients influence brain function. Vitamin D receptors have been identified throughout the brain. Think about that for a moment. Nature doesn't place receptors somewhere without a reason, and that's why researchers continue exploring potential links between vitamin D, memory, cognitive performance, and healthy aging. Now here's something I find fascinating. Every time scientists look deeper into vitamin D, they seem to discover another system it influences. First it was bones, then muscles, then immunity, then cardiovascular health, then metabolism, then brain function. It's almost like vitamin D isn't involved in one thing. It's involved in everything. And perhaps that's why deficiency can show up in so many different ways. But here's where many people make a huge mistake. They hear all this information, they buy a giant bottle of vitamin D, they start taking massive doses, and they assume more must be better. That can be a problem, because vitamin D doesn't work alone. Remember when I mentioned magnesium earlier? Let's talk about that. Magnesium is involved in hundreds of biochemical reactions throughout the body. Some researchers estimate that a large percentage of adults aren't getting enough magnesium. And here's the important part. Your body needs magnesium to properly activate and utilize vitamin D. Imagine trying to build a house. Vitamin D is the construction crew. Magnesium is the toolbox. Without the tools, the workers can't do their job effectively. That's why some people take vitamin D supplements and still don't feel much different. They're missing another piece of the puzzle. And then there's vitamin K2. This nutrient has become increasingly popular in recent years. Why? Because vitamin D helps increase calcium absorption. Vitamin K2 helps direct calcium where it belongs. Many experts describe vitamin K2 as the traffic controller, helping guide calcium toward bones and teeth, rather than allowing it to accumulate in places it shouldn't. Again, health is about teamwork. No nutrient acts alone. Everything works together. This is one reason traditional foods often outperform isolated supplements. Nature packages nutrients together for a reason, and when we eat real food, we're often receiving combinations of nutrients that complement each other beautifully. That's also why some of the healthiest populations in the world weren't counting vitamins. They weren't measuring IU levels. They weren't obsessing over lab values. They were simply living in ways that naturally supported health. They spent time outdoors. They moved regularly. They ate minimally processed foods. They slept according to natural rhythms, and they maintained strong social connections. In many ways, modern health problems aren't caused by a lack of information. They're caused by a lack of alignment with how the human body evolved. And vitamin D may be one of the clearest examples of that reality, because the body was designed to receive sunlight, not endless fluorescent lighting, not screens for 16 hours a day, not constant indoor living. The body was designed to interact with nature, and when we reconnect with that design, remarkable things often begin to happen. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the subscribe button right now and press the notification bell for upcoming videos.